Thanks for tuning in to the Women's Vibrancy Code, a podcast dedicated to helping women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feeling turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. I'm your host, Maraya Brown. I'm a Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, keynote speaker, and self-made entrepreneur. I'm the founder of my signature program, the Women's Vibrancy Code. So sit back, relax, and let's chat about your energy, hormones, libido, and embracing your feminine power. Oh, and you might want to have pen and paper to take some notes on some of these episodes. Sleep. We all want it. We all need it. We know that we need it. And yet, this is going to be a 2-part series. So this first part, we're really getting into why is sleep important? This is one of those I would love to hear back from you. Please give a review. Let me know what are you loving about what you're hearing. You're welcome to comment. You're welcome to reach out to me and say, oh my gosh, how did you know? Right? Because often what I'm hearing is women are having that 2 to 4 a.m. wake up where their mind is buzzing, but their body feels exhausted. Or it's hard to go to sleep, or I'm waking often, or I sleep all night. I think I'm a log and I'm still just so dang tired. It doesn't matter what I do. I don't feel like I got any sleep through the night. So let's talk about all the ways in which sleep is important. Because what I want you to know is if you're thinking that maybe you've got something going on with your hormones, such as your testosterone, maybe you can't lose weight. Maybe you're not putting on the same amount of muscle mass that you used to. Maybe your sex drive is down and you're going, what is going on? My confidence is down. My energy is down. Well, testosterone, one of the biggest times in our day that testosterone is produced is actually when we're sleeping. It's a third of our life that we spend sleeping. It's also the time where we get to rest, digest, and assimilate. So yes, it's important. Also, progesterone production is predominantly, it's produced at lots of times and in lots of ways, but when we're in deep sleep, progesterone production is definitely happening. And we as women want progesterone, especially if we're struggling with PMS, any irritability, anxiety, muscle tension, can't sleep. That's like this double-edged sword, right? Or a self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak. If you're not sleeping, you're not producing as much progesterone. And if you don't have as much progesterone, it makes it harder to go to sleep. Okay, so let's really talk about this. The other thing I want you to know is when you're getting deep sleep, it's when our filing system becomes more efficient. We file away memories. We file away experiences and they go, oh, that belongs over there, but that belongs over here. So that way down the road, when it's time to access those memories, they're appropriately filed. Okay. Sleep is used for stress reduction, mood stabilization, as well as weight management. Okay. So I'm going to get into this and help you understand how sleeping less than 8 to 9 hours a day, if you're someone that is feeling like I am trying to lose those extra pounds, my body composition is changing, what is going on? We can go back to your sleep, how much you're sleeping and your quality of sleep, and link it directly to your weight, as well as the things that we all think of: fatigue, brain fog. Often, like when I would do a 24 or 40-hour shift, 48 hours shift as a midwife, if I don't get enough sleep, it's almost like I feel toxic. It's almost like I feel hungover, because when we're sleeping, that's also a time that we're actually detoxifying. Okay. So, like I said, ideal is to get at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Okay. For those of you that say, I get 6 hours and that's enough. Okay. Here's what we know. 6 hours or less is actually been proven to increase dehydration. Okay. Increasing dehydration means it's going to increase brain fog. It's going to increase exhaustion. All right. And maybe that's another reason why we wake feeling less than ready to start, because we wake actually starting out feeling dehydrated. Imagine if you've ever had too much alcohol and you wake up feeling hungover. Part of the feeling of feeling hungover is dehydration. Another thing that we know is that 6 hours of sleep or less for 7 consecutive nights in one study raised cortisol levels as much as 80%. What's cortisol? Cortisol is that fight, flight, or freeze hormone. Okay. So in other words, you think that you're sleeping, but your body's actually running from a lion. I'm going to be chased. I'm going to be eaten. I'm going to be chased. I'm going to be eaten. But wait, I actually wanted to rest, digest, assimilate, file away memories, detoxify my body. It's not happening. Okay. So if you're getting 6 hours or less of sleep a night, let me tell you, we got to change things. And high cortisol levels will signal your body to then store more fat and burn your muscle. Okay. So now not only are you not producing the testosterone, but also your muscle is being broken down. And instead your body is storing more fat. So you come to me and you say, why am I not losing weight? Why am I putting on this extra weight around my abdomen? Why am I working out the same, but I'm not able to put on the muscle mass? Well, let's go to your sleep. Okay. They say that weight loss is 80% what you put in your mouth, but there's also that 20%, right? And that 20% I think goes directly back to our body movement and our sleep. Okay. Some more stats just to dig it in there a little bit. Sleeping less than 7 hours a night not only has been shown to increase rates of obesity, but also increases people's cravings for unhealthy snacks. Fascinating. So now we're storing more fat. We're breaking down our own muscles. We're not producing the hormones that we're looking for. Our cortisol is spiking and we're going to have crappy cravings. So we're trying so hard to eat well, but that lack of sleep is actually perpetuating the issue, all right, making it feel even worse. Okay. And sleep deprivation leads to temporary insulin resistance, which then triggers the body to store more fat. So now we've got blood sugar dysregulation. Okay. And talking about our gut health, we all know that the gut is the second brain, right? We want to make sure that we're absorbing the nutrients that we're eating. We want to make sure we're producing healthy melatonin levels and serotonin levels so we can feel happy and sleep well. So when we sleep and we have deep sleep, that is the first and one of the potent ways that we can rest, digest, and detoxify. Okay. We want blood flow to go to the brain. So we don't want to be digesting food necessarily. So we want to sleep on an empty stomach. But also when we give our gut that time to rest as we're sleeping, in my opinion, that's the ideal time to do an intermittent fast, right? We stop our caloric intake within 2 to 4 hours of going to bed. So we're not digesting while we're trying to sleep, and we're giving the gut the rest. We're giving the, working the muscle, so to speak. So we're not putting ourselves into more insulin resistance. We're helping the blood sugar stabilize. Okay. So I'm going to keep going because I really want you to hear this. I really want you to know, why is sleep important? I want you to take notes. Okay. And hopefully this is going to motivate you to then listen to the second part where I'll give specific solutions. Okay. So there are 2 hormones. They're called leptin and ghrelin. Okay. They hold the remote control for your appetite. It's like red light, green light. Red light, green light. Ghrelin is green light. Go get more food. I'm hungry. Leptin is red light. Stop eating now. Okay. So what we've learned is that lack of sleep turns up ghrelin and turns down leptin. So now our body is getting off cues. Wait, green light, go get more food. Go get more food. Snack more, eat more. Even if your body actually doesn't need the calories and you're actually not hungry, it's simply that you haven't gotten enough sleep. Okay. So one of the experts that I really love to listen to is Matthew Walker. He's a professor of neuroscience and psychology at UC Berkeley and the director of the Center for Human Sleep Science. If anybody's subscribed to the masterclass series, Matthew Walker has an awesome masterclass on sleep. I'm going to give some of my notes from that. And I just found it so profound. And obviously I'll sneak in some other stuff too. So you've probably heard of REM sleep and possibly the difference between REM sleep and deep REM sleep. Let's talk about it a little bit. For those of you that have an Oura ring, you're able to track how much time you're spending in REM and deep REM. So what is deep non-REM sleep? Deep non-REM sleep is during the deep sleep time. And in the brain, when they're looking at the measurements of brain waves, Matthew Walker refers to it as the symphony of coordination. There will be huge bursts of brain waves and then silence. Okay. So this is in deep non-REM sleep. And the benefits of the brain is that it's going to obviously benefit the brain as well as the body and strengthen and consolidate information gathered through the day. So what I'm saying is we're capturing memories and filing them away. Okay. The other benefit to deep non-REM sleep is we have cardiovascular system is getting to cycle down. So our blood pressure will go down. It gives us a break from fight, flight, or freeze over to, I feel safe. My nervous system can unwind. That's also the time that our immune system function is improved. And we can actually restore our immune arsenal, so to speak, both in the amount and the sensitivity and efficiency of immune factors. Okay, so that's deep non-REM sleep. Okay, then if we talk about REM sleep, this is our dream sleep. This is the active state when brainwave activity is measured, and it has up, down many times a second. So if you imagine a more consistent, like my hand is moving, but for those of you listening on the podcast, like na, 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 rather than deeper silent symphony, we're now into this rhythm. And during that REM sleep, emotions, memories, motor activity spark into life. And we're dreaming in that REM sleep. There's complementary benefits. Okay. Matthew Walker calls it overnight therapy, where you can take a difficult emotional thing that happened the day before. And during REM sleep, it's taking the sharp edges off. Okay. So we can come back the next day feeling better about emotional challenging events that happened the day before. Okay. We can integrate and associate the things we learned during the day. We integrate the past catalog throughout a lifespan of information, and it integrates all of it. Okay. So now you can see if you're not getting deep sleep, we wake up and the filing system is crazy. Like if you imagine going into an office and somebody's just taken all the papers out of the files and thrown them up in the air. And you're like, I don't know what I learned yesterday. I can't remember. I'm trying to take that test and nothing makes sense. And we find ourselves in these emotional loops and emotional patterns because we're not actually resting, digesting, and assimilating the emotional learning, the self-discovery that can happen when we get into REM sleep. Okay, so it's like group therapy for memories. And Matthew says we wake the creative solutions to problems we couldn't solve while awake. Let me say that again. When you've been able to get solid sleep that included REM sleep, you awake in the morning with creative solutions to problems that you couldn't solve while you were awake. So you can go to sleep with your intentions, right? Your prayers. I would like to resolve this thing, come up with a solution for this thing. And when our brain goes into REM sleep and we're getting that group therapy for memories, we're actually getting creative solutions. Okay. So on average, you'll go through 3 to 5 REM cycles per night. And each episode gets a little bit longer as the night progresses in an ideal world. And the final REM sleep cycle can last about an hour. Okay. So we're looking at spending like 20% or so of your time when you're asleep in that REM stage. So if you're sleeping 7 to 8 hours, we're looking at about 90 minutes, ideally in REM. So for those of you, once again, that have an Oura Ring, take a peek. How much sleep is needed? Ideally, we're looking for 7 to 9 hours per night. Some need more, and some can be fine with 7, but let me tell you, no less than 7. Non-negotiable. Okay. So what Matthew Walker says is the number of people who can survive on 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night over time is 0%. 0. He references this amazing study. It included 1.6 billion people across 70 countries. And it's an experiment that happens every year. It's called daylight savings time. This is fascinating. So listen up. In the spring, when we lose 1 hour a day, it has shown that there's a 24% increase in heart attack rates the following day. In the fall, when we gain an hour of sleep, it has been shown that there is a 21% reduction in heart attacks. So for those of you in Hawaii and Arizona and any of the countries around the world that don't do daylight savings times, you're sitting pretty. You don't have to deal with this. They've also found that road traffic accidents, suicide, and the harshness of a judge's choice goes up in the spring, the day after we lose an hour, and the clocks go forward. Okay. So just 1 hour of sleep lost is significant. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about alertness during the day and sleepy time at night. So there's something called sleep pressure. The hormone that maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't, is called adenosine. The more adenosine that builds up, the more sleepy we will feel. Okay. And as we go to sleep at night and get a good night's sleep and our body is detoxifying, the brain then removes the chemical, the adenosine. Okay. And then we wake up feeling alert and refreshed. So if you're one of those individuals that even when you're sleeping or you think you're sleeping, but what I can tell you is if you're using sedatives or alcohol, you're actually not sleeping. You're just a log, or maybe you're sleeping, but you're waking so often you're not getting into REM sleep. So you're not actually detoxifying that adenosine. Then you're not waking up feeling alert and refreshed. Instead, you're waking up feeling sluggish and groggy and toxic. So we want quality sleep so that the body removes the adenosine and we don't feel so sleepy during the day. This also relates to naps. So stay tuned. I'm going to talk a little bit about naps. We can reduce adenosine sleep pressure too much and actually throw off our circadian rhythm if we're not napping correctly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about circadian rhythm. So your circadian rhythm is a 24-hour rhythmic cycle. Your infradian rhythm is a 28-day rhythmic cycle. And for those of you that listen to me, you know that I have lots of ideas around how we're watching our moon cycles, our bleeding cycles, and shifting how we be throughout the month. I'm not talking about that today, though. Right now, I'm talking about circadian rhythm, 24-hour cyclic rhythm. And there's something called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Okay, I love that word, suprachiasmatic nucleus. And it's directly linked to this idea of our 24-hour clock. Because what it does is it listens in and pays attention to the light received by our eyes. And that's what then communicates with our circadian rhythm so that it rises in the morning and peaks before midday. And then hopefully we're going to sustain. And then gradually the circadian activity starts to go down. And the lowest point should be about 3 to 4 hours before bed. And then we sleep and it swings back up in the day. A lot of that is dictated by the light that our eyes are exposed to through the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So at night, lights are out. Okay. Melatonin is up as long as we have strong gut health. Now, what happens for many of us is we have fake light in the house. We have our LED lights. We're watching TV. We're on the computers. We're on our phones. And we're confusing the brain because now the suprachiasmatic nucleus is getting light, specifically a lot of blue light through our eyes and telling us, wake up, stay awake. But then the body's like, wait, I don't really understand, right? So these lights are on and it's turning melatonin down and turning cortisol up. Now, in a normal, natural, sunlight-driven day where, let's say, the sun comes up at 6 a.m. and the sun goes down at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m., oh my God, wouldn't that be amazing if it was the same all year round? The light comes up, our suprachiasmatic nucleus receives it through our eyes, communicates with the brain and says, okay, melatonin, turn off, time to go to sleep. and time to turn cortisol on, prepare for your day. And when you come into my space and I look at your Dutch Plus test, I can see your 24-hour cortisol curve as well as something called your cortisol awakening response. So I can see your cortisol at waking, 30 minutes and 60 minutes. So I can see how is your body responding to waking up. And that tells me a lot about how you slept, about the stress level that you experienced for the 24 hours leading up to that, as well as how are you doing with making sure that your eyes are exposed to light when you wake up? Blue light, fine in the morning. If you imagine a sunrise, it tends to have more purple hues because it's blue light heavy. Think about a sunset. It tends to have more red and orange hues because it's red light heavy. And so then what happens is then in the eve throughout the day, we're exposed to all these screens and our eyes are exposed to blue light, blue light, blue light. And it's like, I don't understand. And so our circadian rhythm goes off. And so people come to me and they're like, I'm not sleeping. I go, okay, how can we start reducing the eyes light exposure to blue light, specifically in the afternoon and beyond? Can we switch out the light bulbs in the house? Can we integrate other forms of red light therapy? So actually getting infrared red light therapy, particularly if you live in a place where, like, I've got clients up in northern Canada or in Alaska where they have very little sunlight in the day. Okay, so now we got to get really creative because we want the body to respond to a normal circadian rhythm. And if we don't have access to the sun, how else can we do this? Okay, so in modern day life, what I want you to hear is that the indoor lighting is bright, right? But it's that fake light and it's not the same as the sun. So if you can spend more time outside, more better. Okay. Especially first thing in the morning. Can you get natural light on your eyes? Can you make sure that in the stress reduction conversation, you're getting outside? Okay. Especially if you're feeling sluggish, if you know that you're not getting enough sleep, or you think that you're sleeping and it's not showing up as restful sleep, waking up in the morning feeling rested. Okay. And Matthew Walker says that we're a dark deprived society. Okay. We're constantly exposed to light. The question is, can we bring in more natural light? And when the sun has gone down, is it possible or feasible that we can listen into that and potentially start winding down at night? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if we could live by candlelight in the evening time? I'm not ready for that because I've got kids that are going to knock over the candles. But if you have a life where you can do that, amazing. Also, for those of you that are thinking about taking melatonin as a supplement, the second part of this series, I'm going to really get into what are some supplements that we can do. How can we change our lifestyle? How can we change our nutrition? But specifically melatonin, what he says is it actually does not impact quality of sleep, which I think is fascinating. So he says that if you're going to do melatonin, 0.5 to 3 milligrams of melatonin is sufficient, is more than sufficient. And more means that potentially the brain becomes less receptive and stops producing the intrinsic melatonin. So it does have a bit of an addictive potential. And in midlife and later in life, melatonin does become more helpful. And supplementation can sometimes be more helpful, but just take it with a grain of salt, knowing that because it's not FDA regulated supplement on the marketplace, as much as 80% less or 460% more than than what it says on the label is actually potentially what's in there. So if you're going to do a melatonin, you definitely want to do a quality melatonin. But like I said, I'll talk more about that on the next piece. And he also says that the placebo effect is most effective of all pharmacology. Let's talk a little bit about sleep debt. So if you haven't been meeting sleep needs over time, adenosine, remember I mentioned that earlier, that sleep pressure and sleepiness build up and we have more pressure. Okay. If we're not getting the sleep that we need, the brain is not able to clear out the adenosine. So it's going to build up and build up. So we become more sleepy through the day with adenosine lingering in the system. And it has a compounding and an accumulating effect over time. And so regularity and sleep patterns become more and more important. Okay. So it really is like when you think about children and their sleep routine, right? We're going to do in our home, we do station in 1, 2, 3. They do their snack, they brush their teeth, get their pajamas, read the book. We have book time, we have cuddle time, we have storytelling time, and then we cuddle them to sleep, right? Sometimes that we can incorporate a bath and even a massage into that, especially when there was only one kid. Now that there's 3, wish me luck. But adults, we still really, really benefit from having some regularity and sleep patterns that are consistent throughout the week. And what I'll talk about is on the weekends, sometimes if we're like, let's party out, then we can have almost like a jet lag effect by going crazy on the weekends. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. And so even though we're trying to get recovery sleep, we never actually get back to the lost sleep. So it is a biological necessity that we have to have each and every night. Once again, it's a third of our lifespan. I remember when I was doing my nurse practitioner training at Yale, the med school had done a study. And what I remember hearing was that they were doing a study on the med school students that were doing 24Q3, meaning every 3 days they'd have a 24-hour shift. And they were tracking this sleep debt. And what they said is if you've gone 24 hours without sleep, in order to make up the lost sleep, you actually have to sleep twice the amount of time. So you can see how this has a compounding and accumulating effect. We're never going to be able to make that up. Okay, so the next night you're going to sleep for 16 hours. That doesn't make sense. Now we're dumping too much of the adenosine and now we're not tired, right? It's just the best that we can do in an ideal world is try to have really regular sleep routines that are consistent over time. And hi, we're dog sitting right now and the dog just walked in. Man, welcome to life. So what he said is most don't actually know that they're underslept, even when physiology shows. So once again, mildly, by 1 to 2 hours consistently over time, they think that they are performing optimally. But when they've done objective performance studies, watching people drive vehicles as an example, and they measure the decline, even in individuals that don't recognize it. Okay. So acute death risk in a drowsy driver with just 1 to 2 hours of less sleep can increase the what they call microsleep at the wheel for a second or two. Okay. It's literally like someone is driving intoxicated. Legally drunk can be the same as behind the wheel, sleep deprived for as little as 1 to 2 hours. So for those of you that didn't, like, if you're still listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, I can really see how sleep really is important. Yes, so that you can have more energy. Yes, so that I can have more clarity of thought. Yes, so that I don't feel so dang irritable the next day and toxic. But are you hearing me here? Sleep is so important. Okay. And like I said, make sure you listen into the next episode because we'll talk about solutions. So talk a little bit about naps, 20 minutes to 90 minutes. Okay. They do have a significant support on cardiovascular health, lowering blood pressure, helping with learning and memory. But even just 17 minutes can help lock in new learning. So the big thing is we don't want to nap for too long because once again, it's going to decrease that adenosine too much. We need to maintain that sleep pressure just enough throughout the day so we can sleep well at night and get the full 7 to 9 hours so we can help alertness and focus. Okay. But it's a double-edged sword, right? Because we don't want to get too much. So if you nap for too long or too late in the afternoon, we're going to decrease that sleep pressure, clear out the adenosine, and now we're not sleeping at night. So then it's difficult to fall asleep. It's difficult to stay asleep. And now we're back into this groggy loop. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about in regard to sleep is something called a sleep chronotype. And when we think about the importance of sleep, it's also in the realm of the importance of self-awareness. So for those of you that are in my inner circle, maybe you're in the Women's Vibrancy Code or you're in my VIP program, we're doing your disc profile. We're looking at your sexual blueprint, your erotic blueprint. We're looking at your love language. We're looking at your sleep chronotype from the perspective of just self-discovery. Okay. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad, but there is something that is called your sleep chronotype that's actually passed down genetically. And, generally it's like, think about a morning person versus an evening person or someone in between. Okay. So what they found is that there are 9 genes that we know of that control this chronotype, and it's strongly genetically inherited. I'll put the link in the show notes. And for those of you watching this over on Facebook, I'll put the link in the comments. It's fun to do. And what they say is that 25 to 30% of people are evening people, 25 to 30% of people are morning people, and 25 to 30% are a mixture. How cool that we can have a society where, evolutionarily, if we had to keep watch over a community, there's enough people that can stay up at night. There's enough people that can stay up in the morning, and then there's a mixture. Or for those of you, thank you so much, that do night shifts in hospitals and officials that are making sure that they're keeping us all safe. How cool. And hopefully those people are night people kind of genetically. And so that kind of looks at our peak rhythm, that we are the most creative, the most alert, and most ready to go. And so I think it's just a fascinating thing to look at. And I think that's good for today. The big thing that I just want you to really hit home is that sleep is important. It's more important than most of us give it credit. And if you are a really ambitious individual that loves to go and do and be productive and often compromises your sleep for the sake of serving others or getting things done, I want you to just question it and allow yourself to do some better boundary setting, allow some routines. We'll talk about some more specifics with the next episode to really get into solutions and what you can do to change. If you're one of those where you're like, yeah, I get it, it's important, but what do I do next, right? So that you can have healthy testosterone, healthy progesterone. You can rest, digest, and assimilate. You can store those memories, whether they're new math equations or new strategy implementation strategies, or they're emotional learnings that you experienced the day before, right? So that you can reduce your stress. You can have a more stabilized mood. You can address your weight and your body composition. You can address the fatigue. You can get rid of the brain fog, and you can really help your body better detoxify. You can see how sleep impacts all of it. Love this. Once again, would love any review. Send a comment, reach out to me anytime. Would love to hear what of this is the most compelling for you. If you have any questions for me. And with that, thanks for listening in. I think you're all awesome. I'm seeing in the Facebook group, I love natural light. Absolutely. It's so vital. And someone says, oh boy, I'm literally on a 48-hour work shift and I've gotten 5 hours of sleep combined in the last 2 nights. Girl, I see you. I've been there as a midwife. I used to work and do either a 24 or 40-hour shift at the hospital. I've also attended home births where, you're on call 24/7, the phone by your side. And when you're not on that 48-hour shift, I really encourage you to do your best to try to keep these sleep routines going. And with the next episode, like I said, we'll get into some specifics. But just have that motivation as you're trying to set boundaries and make it a top priority. Now you really understand why. Okay, so breathing for everybody. Thanks for your time, and ta-ta for now. Thanks for listening to the show today. I know you have lots of choices and live a very productive life, as we all do. I appreciate that you've allowed me to dive deep in your journey of feeling turned on by your life, your lover, and yourself. I trust you learned something, expanded your self-reflection, and you're grateful we shared this time together. Connect with me at www.thewomensvibrancycode.com or on all social media platforms and YouTube by searching for Maraya Brown, Maraya Brown. Lastly, if you've found value in what we chatted about in this episode, please consider leaving me a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. It helps others discover the podcast and get a feeling for the wonderful community we've all created together. As for now, I'm Maraya Brown, and you've been listening to the Women's Vibrancy Code.